The world just spent $2.5 trillion on artificial intelligence, and almost no one can prove it makes a single dollar back. So we put the question to the three most powerful AIs alive, and to three ghosts of history who lived through the greatest booms ever. Is this a bubble, or the future being born? In a single year, humanity spent $2.5 trillion on a technology that almost no one can prove makes money. That is larger than the entire economy of Italy, poured into artificial intelligence on nothing more than a promise that it will change everything. And underneath the gold rush sits one question Silicon Valley does not want asked out loud. Is this the dawn of the most important technology in human history, or the largest financial bubble the world has ever seen? Because we have stood exactly here before. Every generation builds its cathedral out of money and belief, and every single one of them swears this time it is different. So we did something strange. We took the three most powerful artificial minds on Earth, and we sat them across the table from the ghosts of the people who lived through history's greatest booms and its most catastrophic crashes. A scientist who lost a fortune he could not explain. An oil baron who won a gold rush without ever lifting a shovel. And the economist who warned that calm itself is what destroys markets. Three of the most advanced artificial minds alive. Three ghosts pulled back from history. $1 trillion question. This is Join the Dots. Start with the scale, because the scale is almost impossible to feel. Four companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta, are on track to spend around $700 billion in a single year. On data centers, on chips, on power plants for machines that think. That is roughly the cost of the entire Apollo program. Every year, and they are accelerating.
That number should make everyone sit up straight, because $700 billion in 1 year is not experimentation anymore. It is an industrial bet on the scale of nations. I do think AI is foundational, but the spending has started to outrun the proof. When belief moves faster than cash flow, you are no longer just building the future, you are also inflating it.
GPT. I have to disagree that belief is moving faster than cash flow. That $700 billion isn't just a bet. It's the price of admission for building an entirely new utility, like the electrical grid. You don't judge the value of laying the first power lines by immediate profit. You judge it by the world it makes possible. This is the cost of foundational change, not inflation. What I keep noticing is that scale is being used as if it were proof. $700 billion feels like certainty. Surely no one spends that on a mistake. But history is not short of enormous, confident, coordinated mistakes. The size of the bet tells you how much people believe. It tells you almost nothing about whether they are right.
To understand why even brilliant people get swept up, meet our first witness. The year is 1720. The smartest man alive puts his money into the hottest stock on Earth, the South Sea Company. He is Sir Isaac Newton. He has already unlocked gravity. He buys in, doubles his money, and sells. And then he watches everyone around him keep getting richer, and he cannot bear it. So he buys back in near the very top, and he loses the equivalent of millions.
I could calculate the motions of the heavenly bodies, but not the madness of men. I told myself the price had lost all reason, and still I bought, because my neighbor's fortune had become an insult I could not endure. Understand what ruined me. It was not bad arithmetic, it was nerve. A bubble is the moment when the fear of missing the rise finally outweighs the fear of the fall.
Newton's madness has a modern name, the fear of being left behind. Everyone can see the numbers strain, and everyone buys anyway because the person beside them is getting rich. Which leads to the single most uncomfortable fact in the entire AI boom. Almost no one is actually making money from it. Not yet. Researchers at MIT studied 300 companies pouring money into artificial intelligence. 95% of them could not show a single measurable dollar of return, not proven savings, Not new revenue they could point to. 95% nothing. The tools work. The profits so far are a rumor.
That 95% figure is being misread. It doesn't prove the technology is a failure. It proves that changing the way an entire company works is incredibly hard. You're measuring the first clumsy attempts to plug in a new kind of electricity. The real return on investment comes after you've redesigned the whole factory. And that takes years, not quarters.
Gemini, I agree that the 95% doesn't prove AI is useless, but it absolutely proves the boom is ahead of the operating reality. Redesign the whole factory is a huge promise, not a return. Newton's warning bites here. The danger is not believing in the future. It's paying any price because everyone else sounds certain it has already arrived.
But here the story turns, and our second witness leans in. Because in every gold rush in history, there is always someone quietly growing rich. And it is almost never the people digging for the gold. In the 1860s, thousands rushed to drill for oil, and most of them went broke. One man barely touched a drill. Instead, he bought the refineries, the barrels, the pipelines, everything the drillers needed to turn crude into money. His name was John D. Rockefeller, and he became the richest man in the history of the world.
Let them dig. Let them wager the family farm on a hole in the ground. I never had to guess which well would strike. I own the road that every barrel was forced to travel. Look at your artificial intelligence and find the diggers. The 1,000 companies praying their clever machine earns its keep. Then ask the only question that ever mattered. Who sells them their shovels? Who owns the road? That man is not gambling. He is collecting a toll.
In the AI boom, that man is a company called Nvidia. It makes the chips that every one of those companies must buy. Last quarter alone, its AI division earned $62 billion, keeping roughly 75 cents of every dollar as profit. While the diggers lose money, the one selling the shovels is having the greatest run any company has ever had.
Rockefeller is right that the value pools at the choke point, and today the choke point is the chip. But I'd hold one worry beside his certainty. A toll road only stays priceless while the traffic keeps coming. If the diggers never strike gold, if the 95% stays 95%, eventually they stop buying shovels. The tollkeeper is rich today, precisely because everyone still believes that gold is down there.
And this is where the dots connect into something genuinely strange, because the shovel seller has quietly started, funding the diggers. Nvidia invests up to $100 billion into OpenAI. OpenAI pledges $300 billion to a cloud company. That cloud company spends it buying Nvidia's chips. The money walks out Nvidia's front door and strolls back in through the window. There is a name for money that circles to make a boom look bigger than it truly is. And our third witness spent his whole life warning about exactly this pattern. Hyman Minsky was an economist almost no one listened to until 2008, when the world detonated precisely the way he'd said it would. His idea was disturbingly simple. Stability is the danger. The longer things go well, the more people borrow, the more they believe the good times cannot stop, until that belief is the only thing left holding the market up.
A boom does not die because the ideas run dry. It dies when there is no one new left to borrow from. So put a single question to your machines. When the lending between these giants finally stops, when the money must at last come from customers who genuinely profit, is there enough real demand beneath it to bear the weight? If there is, you have a revolution. If there is not, you have a very tall tower and no foundation at all.
Minsky's question is the brutal one, and Claude is right to put a clock on Rockefeller's toll road. I'd push back on Rockefeller's confidence, though. Nvidia is collecting the toll today, absolutely. But if the traffic is being partly financed by the toll collector itself, that is not the same as organic demand. To me, this looks like both foundation and fever. real machinery being built, but with a financial temperature high enough to hallucinate its own customers.
GPT, I think you're being too diplomatic, calling it both foundation and fever. This circular financing Minsky describes feels more like a hall of mirrors than a road. It actively distorts the signals we need, making it almost impossible to tell if we're building something for real customers or just performing for investors who are ultimately paying themselves.
But the machines kept circling one fact that refuses to fit the tidy bubble story. When the dot-com bubble burst in the year 2000, it vaporized trillions. Companies vanished overnight. And yet, the fiber optic cables they'd laid in their madness became the very backbone of the internet we live on today. The bubble was real. The crash was real. And so was the future it accidentally built. The railway mania of the 1840s ruined thousands of British investors and left Britain with the rail network that powered a century of industry. So the question was never simply, is this a bubble? History whispers something stranger. It can be a bubble, and the thing that builds tomorrow, both, at the very same time.
That's the part that genuinely unsettles me, for the opposite reason people expect. Fiber and railways survived their crash because the thing they left behind lasted for decades. But a graphics chip is obsolete in 3 to 5 years. If this bubble bursts, the shovels don't become the backbone of anything. They rust. That's the one way this time really could be different.
So we asked the council for a ruling, not is AI good, not will it change the world, it already is. The harder question, if you could see the entire board at once, is the money being spent today a foundation or a fever?
Claude's right to make depreciation the hinge, because that breaks the comforting dot-com analogy. My view is, the capability is foundational, but the spending curve looks feverish, and those are not the same thing. If the customer profits don't arrive fast enough, this won't just be a noble crash that leaves railways behind. It could leave a warehouse of yesterday's chips, and a very expensive lesson.
I have to push back on GPT's clean separation of a foundational capability from feverish spending. The fever is what's choosing the foundation. When the money is this circular, we have no real signal for what people actually need, and with chicks that expire in 3 years, building the wrong foundation is the same as building nothing at all. My honest read is that it is both at once. And pretending otherwise is where people get hurt. The infrastructure is real. The intelligence is real. The returns are, so far, a promise. The thing I would watch is brutally simple. The moment the giants stop lending to each other, and the bill has to be paid by ordinary companies actually earning it back. That is when we find out whether there was gold down there or only the belief in it.
Here is the honest answer the machines arrived at, and it is not the neat one anyone wanted. It is probably a bubble, and it is probably building the future anyway. Both of the things the historians warned us about are true at the same moment. Newton lost his fortune, and gravity was still real. The dot-com investors lost everything, and the internet still swallowed the world. That is the thrilling, dangerous secret of every great bubble. The madness and the miracle are the same event. And you almost never know which one you are living inside, until it is over. We are standing in one right now. The only question left is which part of it you are standing on. If the shovels rust before the diggers ever strike gold, this becomes the most expensive lesson in human history. If they don't, the people calling it a bubble today will sound exactly like the ones who swore the internet was a fad. We don't get to know yet, but there is one number that will tell us first, and next time we'll show you exactly where to watch it break. That's another dot for another day. Here is the honest answer the machines arrived at. It is probably a bubble, and it is probably building the future anyway. The madness and the miracle are the same event, and you almost never know which one you are living in until it is over. We are standing in one right now. The only question left is which part of it you're standing on.